it's Cresta today. And today I'm going to ramble on more about narcissism, and I'm going to talk more about probably narcissism and family systems of narcissism. I find that as I'm getting older, now that I'm in my 40s, and my parents, which my father's a covert narcissist, and then also my mother is the classic codependent. You know, as I get older, they are falling more ill, and it seems that they are a little bit more clingier than ever now and strange acting. Usually what happens is as narcissists get older, they become even worse in their narcissistic traits. Sad but true. And I think it's really unfortunate because in a lot of situations, especially with codependent women, daughters of narcissistic parents, they get caught in that web of having to caretake for their parents. And it is almost sometimes forced on them. I feel that in my own life especially, and I'm just beginning to see these things, and just how nasty it all can be when you constantly have to be in contact with these people, and they are demanding this and that of you and your attention more and more, because they are not able to self-care in the way that they should in different things. They expect other people to do it for them. And in the case with my codependent mother, you know, she works very hard still, and doesn't have a whole lot of money, and depends on you know, my father too, because my father is he's the type of narcissist that likes to collect money. That is his source of power, is to collect more and more of money with rentals and just any way that he can, even if it's taking from his own children. Like they took one of my trailers that I had found and put, you know, and because I was naive when I was young, and his name was put on the papers instead, and I was never told about that. And I just played right into his game, because when we're children, we don't understand what they're doing. A lot of us are depending on them, and especially with coverts, can put on such a good act to everyone else and also get you believing that they are practically saints and they're going to help you and do this and do that, but in the end they end up taking things away from you. And you know, after my life continues, I can look back and see now that back then I put all my trust into them, you know, and then it was just duped. And so I think part of that led to my drug use, and just trying to escape from that, and trying to escape to find a better relationship and a better way of life. But when you don't get the help that you need, you're just going to stay lost out there, and it's just going to be the same kind of crap just repeating itself over and over again in different situations. You might think that you have found that freedom, but really you're just kind of trapped in that web of lies and bull crap like you always were, until you get the real help and treatment and recovery that you need. I still have so much work yet to go, but I just want to say how annoying narcissistic parents can be when they're in older age, and when they try to trap you in that burden of caretaking them. And you know, these days they've been asking a lot about my money and things. Sometimes I wonder if my mom isn't part borderline as well, because they seem to just pry in there, which narcissistic families and even enablers like my mother will do. You know, she will act very close to me and very nice to me, and even my father at times, which is when they're really gaining information out of you as to what they can take from you next, what they can take advantage of you on next. And it's just kind of leaves me in kind of a sick disgust. But then again, you know, when you really start realizing and learning what they're doing, although you do have to learn how to deal with it and be able to, if you're still going to keep any kind of contact with them all, in which I have to because my kids are still out there and I'm still beginning my undertaking in you know, fighting against the narcissism in the right way and not dealing it with the wrong way anymore, like I always did, and which always backfired and never worked, and I could never stand up to them like I wanted to. It just never worked. You know, that pattern can repeat over and over and over again all your life, until you start understanding and becoming aware of what they're doing and the tactics that they're using, which is a big one for me. And, you know, I mean, I do have a love in my heart for them, and they can act very loving, but then again, I have to watch their tricks and shenanigans too, because, you know, they will defeat you over and over again too, with like, when you don't go along with when you start not going along with their plan anymore of what they have in store for you, for them, because it is all about them. Okay? To them, it's never about you. Even though they may say that they are going to help you with this or that, in the end, it really is all about them. So when you start playing into that, that is the trap. But when you do start standing up to it in, let's say, more appropriate ways, they are going to be angry. When you start saying no and setting boundaries, they're going to be angry. I get the silent treatment from my mom. I used to get that a lot. Like when I first started finding out and learning about narcissism, and when I started learning about it with my ex, because it was so horrible and really evident, because he was more of an overt, where it was just really evident what he was doing, and his pathological lying were just ridiculous. And he was also an alcoholic. It just got to the point where I would go home and I would start reading, and you know, the verbally aggressive or the verbally abusive relationship and this and that, and all these, and learning about covert. I blatantly would lose it when I was trying to have a conversation with my mother, and I would basically start telling her that she was an awful person and she was selfish and blah blah blah, and it just all came out. All this anger, these pent up years of anger, just started coming out on me, and I was saying no, but it was in a very aggressive way, you know. And of course that never solves anything when you're using a more aggressive manner to handle things. That's for any relationship at all. You know, when you learn to use the correct boundaries and use assertiveness instead of that aggressiveness, things can be handled in a much better manner, even with like the enablers or narcissists or flying monkeys involved. Because, you know, my mom, she would put on the silent treatment for weeks and weeks, you know, and she had never done that before. So that was because I'd always played along with her all my life. And it was okay, because in that time I had that space from her, I think, that I needed. But more of these days, we keep on more of an even schmeal, where I try not to get so angry, although I will lose it, because it's because codependent enablers like that have narcissistic partners, they will not. They will gain a lot of those narcissistic traits, or they will have a lot of narcissistic traits themselves. And they can eat it at you, like with that emotional abuse. You know, they can start eating at you emotionally and nagging at you and egging you on and poking in your sore areas that they've already created, and just go deeper with all those because they can sense it. You know, they just can. It's our humanness and our human behavior and our human senses that we can just tap into each other in different ways, especially emotionally like that. And that's why narcissists are such big, like vampiric emotional abusers. They can just, that's what they feed off of to make themselves feel better and to gain more power because they don't know how to get it another way. It's like an addiction to them. They need that. And then, of course, you know, the enablers will do that as well. And they'll take all the information that they gather, they'll take it back to the main source, which is the narcissists themselves, like the main vampire. And, you know, use all of that against you. They will turn all of that against you. In the past, you know, they would gaslight me, especially more since I've been standing up to it these past few years, that all of a sudden, because I was so angry and they would make me crazy by like letting me borrow cars for work because they started doing the same job I do, which we drive taxi. And then we all have cars, and then they would help me like repair cars, or my dad would start buying cars, like, you know, used cars, and letting us borrow them for a while. And then like one time he said that I could actually have a certain van to drive. And when it came to, I finally confronted him about the paperwork for me signing to own it. And he said, oh, well, no, I wasn't saying that I was going to do that. I was just letting you drive it for as long as you needed. And just, you know, crap like that. It's more pathological stuff where they try to get you to believe something. It's trickery. And, you know, they're not even really aware that they're doing it, although some of them are, more, depending on how extreme they are. But, you know, I think I'm more sensitive to my mother because I can see it more in my father than I can as I'm talking to my mother, and because the love in her heart is more, and the love for us, like her own children, is more. But they use and connive, like, you know, they'll pit my children against me, and just very, very, very subtly, covertly done, which is just kind of more deadly in a way, because nobody sees it happening and nobody sees for what it is, and that can make a person all the crazier. So then they load all as much as they can on top of a person, just trigger and blows to the self-esteem and financial and just everything else. And then they'll say, oh, well, you're angry at us? Well, you're acting very crazy right now, because it will drive you nuts, especially when they start doing the gaslighting and acting like your anger, you have no excuse to be angry for the way that they're coming at you with, you know, things that they're saying or what they're accusing you of and things. I remember one time, after the mold sickness, my allergies got so bad. And ever since I got IBS in my 20s, they would ignore that I all of a sudden was very ill. And it just got completely, like, not even barely looked at, like there wasn't anything wrong with me. And IBS is a pretty serious condition. And that's another thing that they do. They just ignore it can be even worse when it comes to illnesses. I'll talk about that in another video. But it seems like the more a person is down, the more they're going to dig at you and beat at you to further gain control over you, and that emotional power that they feed off from you. So I just wanted to stick a little story in here about the van that my dad had given me to drive for a while. It was a larger van, and I was making more money with it. And after the mold sickness, I was driving it, and I was having problems driving. I guess that even though I don't work for them, I work for myself, they had put my phone number on their ad. And someone that I had just drove had called them and complained about me and my driving, and saying that I almost ran out into in front of a semi, which was halfway the truth, but there was no way I would have done that, you know, on purpose or anything. It was actually my allergies, and there was no way I almost ran out in front of that thing, number two. So there was like a little bit more of a lie coming in from each end, like over exaggeration. Excuse me. And the van that I was driving had no air conditioning. And so I would have to roll the windows down. And like back then I would not stand up for myself. I would just let it go because of my codependency. And I would ask him if we could fix the air conditioning. And it just would not get fixed. Actually, it would get fixed for a while, but then it would break down again, and it wouldn't work again. And just basically all of his cars were bought and used, and they would just go in the shop over and over again. And I paid quite a little bit of money even into some vehicles for repairs, and lost a lot of money like that too. So in the case with narcissists, they will eat at you financially. You know, it's just to have that control over you. So the story goes was that I stood up for myself, and I got kind of upset about it. And I was just feeling nuts at that point anyways, because I was still with that narc ex back then, and we were arguing, and I was at a major like PTSD type of mode anyways, major protection and kind of acting mean. And but I remember when they sat down in front of one of my children and started accusing me that I wasn't treating my customers right and I was driving badly. And and when I stood up for myself, it's gaslighting. It hurts very much, and of course they don't believe any of it, and then they start accusing me that I'm crazy and I need to get on medicine. That right there is pure gaslighting. I'm telling you, it's one of the nastiest tricks that they have, and they know how to use it. They are they have trained themselves very well on using it, and they will use it against you. I actually was seeing a therapist up at a center at a time, and she got the number of my therapist and called, my mother did, and called up there and started talking to my therapist that I was mentally ill and I needed to be on medicine. And my therapist had to talk to her and tell her that I really did not need to be on like certain medicines. And thank God I had a therapist that knew that stuff, you know, because she probably wouldn't be my therapist right now if she was trying to dope me up on a lot of different medicines. So, you know, that was a big blow to me right there. And then after that, my daughter that had been sitting right there started telling me that she wasn't going to talk to me until I got on medicines too. And it was a real nightmare. And it was, you know, another reason why I'm learning and doing all of these things today, because it is just so nasty and it is a nightmare to deal with. I live away from there now, although sometimes the temptation to go back, because they have many rentals out where they live at, sometimes it is tempting to go back out there and live in one of those, because they will make everything enticing, you know. But there is a lot involved when you start learning boundaries and standing up for yourself, standing up for your own rights and your own needs, and your own fulfillments and dreams as a human being, as a person, staying a healthy individual and soul, staying in your right mind and not letting these people win. Because I tell you what, if any of you've ever dealt with it out there, it is like night and day to be able to have your own place away from that, and you don't have to talk to them all the time. You can have certain times where you're going to have maybe a certain visitation or something around these people, but it's the no contact again and limiting contact, and it's really staying firm in all of that, you know. Even when you might have to help take care of them when they start getting old, but not to let them run it, not to let them run the show, and you can stay running your own show. So you know, if anybody would like to listen to this, if it helps anyone at all, thanks for listening. I appreciate everybody watching, and it feels kind of neat to have maybe a small audience now. I've got about 20 subscribers, and of course this little thing loves to be part of it all too. She's a big movie star now. And yes, in the future I'm waiting right now for Dennis to and my insurance and everything to cover this other tooth coming out, and then getting like a nice full set across there. So just so you know how things are going with my teeth, if anybody wondered, I'm setting this video out again. Thank you.